co-founder is building the central hub of the business future. We are starting with a 600 million crowd sale market today, but our final goal is the 130 billion VC investment market.
Welcome everyone to the Blockchain Speaker Series. I'm Mark Joseph, I'm your host, and today we'll be interviewing, and Dylan will correct me if I get his name wrong, Dylan Dewdney of the...
It's actually... Yeah, and it's a little bit weird, but my father is Welsh, and he was really into the Welsh pronunciation. So among my everyone I'm very close with, it's Dylan. So
it
I'll
is
extend
okay.
that close, and I wouldn't expect you to get that, but I or anyone really for that matter who's not from Wales,
especially in North America, yeah.
Because I feel like we're starting to get close already. So
right on. So with that, we're talking with we're talking with Dylan Dewdney of the Harbour project, co-founder and chief strategic officer, or is it chief strategy officer?
Either way, it works.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll talk a little bit about the Harbour project to give my preliminary understanding, and of course we'll ask Dylan to explain in his words, tell us about himself and the project. But from what I gather, the project is a platform for investors who fit a certain profile of a particular type of sophistication. And when I say sophistication, I'm speaking facetiously, because when I say investors, a sophisticated investor, I don't mean those who are particularly technically capable or those who have decades of trading experience, maybe with an investment banking or venture capital or maybe hedge fund background. But what I mean when I talk about sophistication in this case is those who understand and appreciate and perhaps have even experienced the power of leveraging the wisdom of the crowd. And so, we've seen in recent history and that decisions, that evaluation of information and decisions can be made with superior results by the population, by the crowd. That surpass the results of individual, regular, everyday people like me, but also of experts. So it's very helpful for those of us who are investors and have limited time on our hands to do our research, to have some assistance from everyone. And also, there's another type of sophistication that we can talk about that the project accommodates, which is, there's different approaches when it comes to investing. There are traders who can be described as those who have a particular level of confidence in their ability on their own to make decisions based on their research that they perform, or maybe that their small investor groups perform, to make decisions and then execute buy and sell orders at particular times such that they outperform everyone else. And then there's there's some arguments for that, but statistically, what we've seen is that there's another kind of approach that does yield stronger results, and that is to buy and hold. And for those of us in the YouTube investor community who affectionately refer to ourselves as hodlers, this appeals to us. And
that makes everyone laugh for some reason.
That's such a great thing. I just love that.
Sorry to
So and then of course there are certain investors with very famous names, such as Warren Buffett, who talk about you buy and then you hold, and then when the market crashes or dips, you buy more and you hold. So, for those of us who fit this particular investor profile of this kind of sophistication, there's a lot. The Harbour project really offers something very useful to us, And so there's a lot of benefits, and I could go on that I see, and I could be getting some of these wrong. So I will let Dylan talk about the project and introduce himself, talk about his team. So if you could do that, Dylan, tell us about your project and your team, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So myself, I kind of have had dual careers. As an academic, as a social theorist early on, and then later on in the security world. So it's kind of an interesting mix. In addition to that, I'm a real autodidact, if you will. So anything I come across that I think is interesting to me, I want to know. I want to wrap my head completely around it. When Bitcoin hit the streets in 2000, I don't say the streets, the internet, in 2009. I wasn't aware of it, but I did become aware of it in 2011, and pretty much tried to figure out everything that I could about it. And then a couple of years later, I'm in Toronto, so this is where Ethereum was born. And a couple of years later, I heard some whispers and murmurs of Ethereum in the Bitcoin Talk forums, and then I wanted to know everything I could about that. So, I hung out a fair amount in the community. Went to what was it? It was a conference here in Toronto. I forget the name of it, but it was in 2013, and that's when I met. It was 2013 or 14, I can't recall actually, but that's when I met Vitalik and team, and I can lay claim to having their first T-shirt. So, so I was really impressed by their team and got into Ethereum, and sort of have been ensconced in the Ethereum world and trying to understand decentralized applications and wrapping my head around that, and really this whole time wanting to be a builder in this space. It was it was really my dream to be a builder in this space somehow. And I didn't know how I would achieve that. But we've started, and I'm just so passionate, but so excited to be a part of the space and be a builder in the space. It's like a dream come true for me, and I think for the other founders too. So I get a little choked up about it, actually.
Well, I think that the investor community really appreciates the chance to hear about what drives founders. And Dylan, you're a family man with a 6-month-old and a 6-year-old, as I gather, and you wake up at 5 a.m. every day to work on this project, and here you are on Sunday making time to talk to the investor community, so that you can really tell us about how, what it is that drives your work. And so yes, please continue. We very much like hearing about it.
So absolutely. So yeah, and I felt in my I was so we have I think I explained this in another interview, but we have a really interesting founding team. So Dean and Nick are pretty young, so they've actually grown up in blockchain, which is really interesting. So they're from young. Teenage years, so from teenage years, they've been involved in blockchain, especially Dean. So Dean is 19. There's no beating around the bush. He's a young, really Mark Zuckerberg type dude. Very, very smart, very deep thinker, and really adept at Solidity coding. And he also started investigating this, I guess, we're in 2017. So when he was 13, from 2011. So he's grown up with blockchain. Same with Nick. And I think that I was like, wow, that's really neat. Myself and Cal are sort of the older guys. Cal is a really great project manager and entrepreneur. He kind of keeps everyone on their toes, and it's we need to we need to go A, B, C, D.
He's the operations guy.
Yeah, and it's neat because Cal and I sort of we witnessed in our formative years the start of Web 2.0, right? So late 90s, early 2000s, and the end of what I think is the end now of Web 2.0, which is happening now. So I think in that mix in that mix of a founding team, it's really interesting because you have both perspectives. You have a perspective of somebody who's starting, whose formative years are in the beginning of this phase, and you also have the perspective of two others who have seen a start and end. And then I also come to this talk about the founding team and our complementary strengths there from those perspectives, because just getting personal, and why I'm passionate about this project in a way is because I felt when I was in my teens, and this is, I think, the power of the blockchain, and why it's so compelling. When I was in my teens at Web 2.0, I felt this amazing thing is happening. Like, this amazing thing is happening. And I wish I could be a part of it, right? I wish I could somehow do something with it. Like, how do I, but I was locked out. We all were, I think, to some extent.
The opportunities were limited. Well, more so. More so.
Yeah, and I think that's a substantive and fundamental difference to Web 3.0 to now, and why there's such explosive demand and interest in intrigue in this space, because now you don't just have the ability to participate in the future of the world as a consumer. You have the ability to participate as, from real ownership level in a way.
Stakeholders,
as a stakeholder, and so that is really, really super neat. The second thing is that from my background, which was really focused when I was in doing my master's in social theory, I was really focused on social movements. I was really focused on this may sound counterintuitive as the launcher of this of Harbour, which is ostensibly to create value, but I was really into democratization of wealth, into access, to opportunities, into movements that tried to some extent wrest control from people who were concentrating wealth. So I have my mindset is really one that, although in the near term we are going to certainly be delivering value to everybody who takes part in Harbour, I believe. In the long term, we are part of a broader ecosystem that is going to, I think, democratize wealth and democratize opportunity of access to wealth. And that is probably, for myself and also for the rest of the team, one of the main drivers for us in the long term. That's what I can really get behind. Is that we're going to be part of something that when the world is saturated with it, that I really hope will be a force of good and a net positive for the world. So without being too, but yeah, that's I may be a little idealistic, but I think I'm joined by many others in that sentiment.
I agree, and I wouldn't say that there's anything grandiose about this kind of a vision. What we've had with these legacy systems has been a failing to bring online the opportunities that exist. And there's this view of the world that, there are some who have a view of the world that says we're not living in scarce times, but rather there is abundance. It's just that there are disconnects and inefficiencies and barriers to participation. And when we're able to overcome those through these kinds of distributed these opportunities that allow for participation, then at that time we'll essentially be able to save the world. We can make it. Is the belief that there's a belief system that includes this idea that we can make it. And so these kinds of projects are just thrilling. So I'm really cheering for you, and I have a lot of appreciation for this kind of work.
Thank you. And I know that's a pretty high level view. So I want to take us back to the really practical concern.
Sure.
That we had when we were forming this. So we were like, I know I was, and I think the rest of the founders would agree with me. We found, this landscape increasingly inscrutable to us. We didn't know where, every day there's a new ICO, and I know that some people have criticized us and said, you're starting an ICO to make sense of ICOs, and the answer is yes, we are.
Nice.
But I understand. We understand that that's a little ironic. But that being said, it just came from a very practical concern as well, which is that, like, what do we do? Like, I don't know if this is good. I don't know if this one is good. And I don't have the time to research all this. So we're like, why wouldn't you just have something that could, and this is where the initial idea was born. Why couldn't you just have a token that would, that would handle that? And we're like, okay, well, how would that work? And then we started kind of iterating, and then, and Dean, and all credit, by the way, goes to Dean, for forming really, he had a lot of this formed in his mind, already. I had like the rough sketches out, but he was he had a really good sense of it. And he provided that early ideation, that really helped, I think, harness, some of the essential components of it. And we've iterated since, but certainly the crowdsourced, aspect of it, I think is very powerful. And I'd love to get into why that is in detail, if you're into it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I'll do a little bit of a redirect, and I want to return to that, because the principles of all of this are really what's so profoundly important. So I do want to hear more from you on that. So let's return to that. What I want to also make sure that we cover is that a lot of the basic functionality, explanation for the basic functionality of projects is found on home pages, white papers, and FAQs. Of course it's available and it's there, but a lot of us in the YouTube investor community, which I happen to believe is, I could be wrong about this, but I believe that it may be the case that the YouTube investor community is the larger crypto asset investor community. I could be mistaken about that, but that's my perception. And those of us in that space, learning of the news and the announcements and the developments through that channel, often really sort of rely on these kinds of interviews to just learn about the basics of what a project is, what the problem is that it seeks to overcome. So if I could trouble you to talk through the basic and perhaps less enjoyable, the lesser fun explanations, to just tell the audience what your project does, and what the basic functionality is.
Yeah, so Harbour is a token that we've coined a term for it. It's a decentralized autonomous token array, and what that means is that it's an array of tokens that is dynamic and fluid and is incented toward overall value. So taking that down to very simple language, Harbour is a token that unlocks a constellation of tokens that are incented toward overall value based on harnessing the wisdom of the crowd. So let's say that Joe Smith buys a Harbour token. When he buys that Harbour token, what it represents is a whole array of different tokens in the in the Ethereum ecosystem. Now those chosen tokens that of which it is composed, ostensibly are going to be the ones that deliver the most value to the Harbour token holders. The Harbour token holders themselves will be deciding on what the composition is of Harbour, if that makes any sense. The problem that we're trying to solve is the problem not only of trying to find value, but also the problem of knowing where the value is. So it's sort of a really easy. I like to. I've phrased it as it's a smart, intelligent cross section of the Ethereum ecosystem in one coin. That's pretty much it.
And so how is it? And so from what I gather, it can facilitate and assist investment decision making, and the holders of the tokens actually are able to participate in the decision making process together as a population to achieve that the goal of greater value in the set that is held. How is it that participants are able to contribute to the decision making?
Yeah, absolutely. So and the DAO, which is the protocol that we're building for Harbour, is really the kind of cool piece of it. And I think that's where certainly we've gotten a lot of interest within the crypto community as part of this project to say, that's cool that you have an intelligent slice of the ecosystem, but what is really turning us on is the DAO and is the protocol you're building, because a powerful, I think the next evolution of cryptocurrencies or of blockchain in general. I think first you had the first use case, which is Bitcoin, which is
a currency,
a calculator and works on currencies. Then you have Ethereum, which is, which is the platform onto which all these, decentralized applications grow. And then you have what I think is perhaps the next iteration of all of this, in my opinion, which is self-governance structures on these dApps that are on Ethereum. We're not the only ones who are working on self-governance, but we're the only ones who are working on it in the way that we are. And self-governance is really cool because now we have the ability to operationalize decision making. We have the ability to disintermediate decision making, so that it's not a bunch of noise in a room and everybody, I want this and I want that. It's now we can really make decision making efficient and fair and transparent. So when it comes to Harbour, when it comes to decision making in Harbour through our DAO, one Harbour token equals one vote. So say that you and by the way, we're still working on our modeling for how much it's going to cost for proposals, but for right now we're working with one Harbour token as one vote. But you would submit a proposal. That proposal would be voted on by the Harbour community, by each individual holding their tokens, and they would point their votes to that proposal. So they not only say yes or no, obviously, but they can choose the level of percentage that the Harbour token that array will point toward a certain token. So to kind of disambiguate that, if you say I'll plug basic attention token here. So if you want basic attention token to compose, right now in the array it's composed, let's say it's 5% of Harbour token is basic attention token. And what we want, and you think, you say, you know what? I think I think basic attention token is going up. And I think there are clear reasons why it would go up. So I'm going to submit this proposal, and I'm going to see if the community will vote on it. Once the community votes on it, and it carries, and it's attached to a certain percentage raise, then that passes, and now we point more of our Harbour at basic attention token, and ostensibly you think that's gonna earn you more surplus ETH. That's basically how it works.
I find this to be very useful. Those of us working class folks like myself who have, we believe in the space and the technology and the future of humankind. We really believe that we can find a way to persist and flourish with abundance. We have limited time to be reviewing all of these new coins and the existing ones that that have already launched and that we don't have. Jimmy Song, a pretty popular blockchain blogger, talks about how he talks about how it takes around 2 weeks of research and actually rolling up your sleeves and working with a token to get a good, just to start to get a good sense of a coin.
Yep.
I don't often have much more than half a day to put into the research that I'm able to do before actually having to execute a decision. So I find this to be very useful in two ways, depending on where you are as an investor with a particular, with what you're doing at any particular time. You can, at any given time, have knowledge of and belief in some crypto asset that you want to see the fund point towards, and you may want to submit a proposal to have some greater level of involvement in the stewardship of the funds. There are other times, however, when you don't have that opportunity because you're working. You have responsibilities elsewhere, and so you then are able to benefit from the power of all of the other participants, the power and the wisdom of the crowd, and that makes for such a seamless investment lifestyle, for lack of a better way to put it. There's a better word there. But to be able to move in and out of levels of involvement in your investment activities and at the same time have optimization of the decision making of where you're.
And I love that you're invoking the word power, because this is where a lot of it came from. Was we felt very, as individuals, the founders felt pretty powerless in this ecosystem in some way, in the sense that, but you have people who have like tens of thousands of Ethereum, right? And they can potentially move markets.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, why, in addition to trying to solve the problem of like, how do you know where the value is? Well, how do you aggregate your leverage, right? And I think that it solves for that too, right? So instead of like one ant, crawling around on the ground, we're a whole hive. And some people have invoked the term hive mind.
Right.
My co-founders we're sort of like a symbiotic brain on the Ethereum ecosystem that's incented toward overall value. Kind of an aggregated brain.
Right.
I really like that because it's true, because we're a brain that's connected by the blockchain.
Yep.
And this is the first time in history where you could have people connected in this way.
Absolutely.
So I think that's really cool. I mean, that's really, really cool that for the first time we can do these sorts of things, right? We can perform these experiments and see how they work out.
We simply have access now that we never had before. We have access now that
yeah. So I think that's just super neat. And we're most excited now that we're getting really close to launch. We're really getting excited about how, because really it's you that is going to be in control of it. The community is really going to be in control of it in the long term, and you're going to have as much say as anyone in its destiny once we get to stage 2. And we're just so excited to see like what game theoretic models will be born out of this, and what will end up winning the day in terms of the configuration, because I'm pretty sure we're the only DAO out there that is gunning for full autonomy.
Right. Yeah. Talk more about that.
Yeah. So we're and it may seem counterintuitive, but our overarching goal, our overriding goal, is to be completely irrelevant to this project. We want to be able to say we want to put the robot somewhere and just let it go clean the house, if you will. We don't want to touch it again.
Right. Because we've seen failures when there is, this is the whole purpose of the original vision of the blockchain is to move away from centralization because of the failures associated with it. Certainly.
Yeah, and that's what we like about about our project too, is that we think we're completely in line with the original philosophy of blockchain, which is hands off, right? Yep. To some extent. There has to be some centralization in the early period, in the sense that we have to guide the ship. Yeah. I don't want to overuse the nautical themes, but we have to guide the ship to Harbour.
Right. No, it works. So
Yeah, it works. Right now, maybe I'll talk about this with the marketing guys, but right now we're maybe out to sea, and we do need to guide it into Harbour in the early stage.
Okay.
But we're doing that with full community involvement. But yeah, I mean, we have to make sure. I want to temper that, because when you do, we saw with the DAO with Sloth.it's project. This is like new territory, and this is not territory. This is like an atom bomb. This is new stuff. This is like the 1960s, and we're figuring out nuclear fission for the first time. So people are going to get really hurt.
Or could.
And it has happened. We did have an atomic blast with the DAO. So we are, and in some ways, I think that was good. It's
learning experience.
It's good. It was a good learning experience, because everybody saw what the ramifications of not fully understanding the implications of something that somebody could take advantage of, right? The DAO that we're building, the protocol that we're building, we will not release until we're 10, 11, 12 times sure that it's, and in the sense we won't fully release it, at least the configuration abilities, until we're sure it cannot be exploited. All edge cases are covered or rendered impotent. We're working with some, I can't release names yet because but we will be making some. I can say we will be making an announcement soon on some new advisory team members, but I can say that we are working with some really great minds in the space at this point on our game theoretic modeling, and we're that new believers that I never thought I would talk to. So that's pretty cool.
Well, that feels nice. That's nice when that happens.
Yeah. So I mean, I mean, and sorry, I don't want to be overly Pollyannic about this, but I mean, we're gaining new people that that I think are really going to help the project and help ensure that it can't be exploited for nefarious ends. Sure. Because that's a huge concern when you're doing a DAO, and certainly a huge concern when you are ultimately hoping this to be a completely autonomous, configurative DAO.
Because you have that functionality, which is quite ambitious, but at the same time, as you described, it has a danger to it, and so it needs to be fully covered. Certainly.
Absolutely. And yeah, actually, my morning reading is now analysis of game theory.
That stuff is so hard.
You know what? Like, I found this. I found a pretty good text on it. It's by Serious.
Say that name again, because we just got a voice drop. Call quality is actually quite good, but we're getting a couple of voice drops here and there.
I moved a few things. It's called Essentials of Game Theory.
Okay.
But and that's just so I can speak the language of the experts that were, because I don't know everything. I mean, I would never purport to know everything, but I think I know enough to help guide the project.
Well, and it's such an important piece because the opportunity of having that functionality is so great that you could have different. There could be a version of your project that is less capable, that has fewer opportunities, but to go after the configurability and to eventually include the kind of configurability. I'm not sure that's a word, but to try to pursue having the configurability built in it's an opportunity you just can't pass up. So you have to do the work.
And I do think we're the only one out there right now that is gunning for that full autonomy, in the sense that the community will be able to configure the operations of the DAO in the long term. So if the community and I mean, there's potential. I mean, you could, if the community wants to say that the reserve fund is now 50%, they can do that in the full measure of the DAO. I want to jump back though to why we think the wisdom of the crowds, or why we think this hive mind is a good idea. And also jump back to your point about the not knowing about. I don't want to say lazy investors. It's not that we're lazy. It's that
we have obligations.
We have limited time.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have obligations and responsibilities. So ostensibly, the people who are most invested in Harbour are also the ones that will be spending the most time, right? So if you have 1,000 ETH, 2,000 ETH in Harbour, you're not likely this is part of our game theoretic modeling. You're not likely to want to lower the value of Harbour. Right?
Sure.
By a sell-off, perhaps.
Yeah.
B, you're also more incented than somebody who has 2 ETH or 3 ETH in Harbour to increase the value of Harbour. So you're probably going to be more engaged, and maybe C, debatable, you have more expertise because you have more.
There could be a correlation that wealth and success is.
That's debatable.
Yeah,
that's debatable. But anyway, the first two are definitely the strong pieces there, right? So if you are pairing yourself, if you're joining hands and joining minds with all of these people who are all incented toward the same thing. And you're pointing, and you're not just saying, it's not like like you have a stake in this, so you're pointing value at it. You're not just saying it's not like having a debate on a forum where you say, I'm gonna convince you of this, and I could have
just for emotional high emotion. I know what you mean. Yeah.
So it's very objective to us objective. Where you point. It's very objective to us where you point your Harbour, and it's putting your money where your mouth is.
Yes.
And or your value where I don't want to say money, but your the value where your mouth is, and that is super powerful. We haven't been able to have that, and that acts in concert with that self-governance and with that value creation. So we believe it's this very virtuous cycle.
Yes.
Right.
It's a cycle.
The very virtuous cycle where all the Harbour token holders are incented toward overall value. The ones that have more or have less are pulling these ones along, and everyone is trying to get the whole value of Harbour raised. And we're all pairing our expertise and our wisdom to arrive at very good solutions and outcomes, unbeknownst perhaps to all of the individuals. We're all contributing in an iterative way to the overall wisdom of the project.
Yeah, and it could be that if we do accept that there is some correlation between wealth and success, then we smaller players may very well be quite pleased to be having the assistance of those with stronger voting power by way of greater holdings to have our decisions be contributing, but to have their decisions be weighted more strongly. Is that valid? You
Sure.
think?
I think that's fairly valid. I mean, in wisdom of crowds, an essential component of wisdom of crowds is diversity of opinion, and
True.
and diversity of opinion drives good decision making usually. So, unfortunately, we didn't have a great way to. I mean, there's no way to control for large players in. There's no good way to control for large players in this, but we felt that if there was no good way to control for large players in Harbour, then what are the reasons why they are not so bad? And we started really investigating that, and we thought, well, actually, no. If to your point that you're making, which is that the point that I made previously. Well, actually, no. If you have more value in Harbour, and let's say you have 5,000 ETH in Harbour, which we hope no one has in the first stage, but
you have a limit actually on initial contributions for that purpose.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember if I spoke to Dean this morning about our limit. We may be. I can't remember what our final limit is going to be, but we may be releasing more information on that soon, because we have the truth is you can put limits, but people can have multiple Ethereum addresses.
Right.
It just makes it harder.
Yep.
It just makes it harder. That's all. But we do have quite a few people in our whitelisting right now, which gives us a good indication of diversity at this point of individual addresses. So we're 99.9% certain we're going to have great diversity.
Okay.
But back to the whale question. We were like, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because they're going to have more stake, more stake in Harbour, right? They're going to have more stake in the system.
Yeah, so they would be. That you would assume they would be more strongly incentivized to invest a greater focus and provide better information.
Correct.
Because they're less casual.
Correct. And I think that you have so it's still a strength, and you still get diversity of opinion within that wisdom of the crowd sort of framework.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've had a really dynamite interview so far. I might not need to actually ask any questions here. I think let me think. I think I had a question about incentive to propose. Now there's a cost to propose, and I suppose the incentive to propose is simply. Maybe it's my question has already been answered, but before I sort of continue with that, I want to mention to everyone who's interested in the project that I think it's so helpful that you have a white paper that's in plain language, and then you actually also have what now?
Sorry. No, I was going to say that was so important to us to have it in plain language, and that was something we decided because we were tired of reading. We were tired of reading white, and sorry if there's any noise, by the way.
No, I think we're good.
We were tired of papers that were, that we couldn't, that we needed to, that our eyes started crossing.
Right. Yeah.
Some of us can get the technical components. Many of us cannot, including me, oftentimes.
Okay.
And we thought it was so important to have a white paper that was written in plain language that people can understand. But at the same time, for those who wanted to dig deeper, and verify that we're the real deal, we have a technical paper that's I think twice the length,
right,
or close to it. So yeah, sorry, and I'm sorry to interject.
Oh, not at all. Thank you. So I did find that to be a wise decision in approaching the market. So when I was reading through, so I'm thinking that there is a cost to submitting proposals, and I didn't read about any actual incentive for successfully contributing knowledge or decision making to the into the proposals. I suppose so. So there is no actual like Harbour token incentive for contributing, basically winning votes that result in stronger earnings than otherwise. It's just an idea I had. Maybe it's actually invalid because you you are intrinsically rewarded, motivated, and rewarded for having contributed winning votes, because those things end up you end up with gains. So I suppose that's sort of, is that right?
Yes. I think that's a good assessment. So I mean, you are intrinsically gaining if you have a good proposal, regardless.
Right.
However, it remains to be seen. I mean, this is still iterative and experimental, and once beta is up to selected community members, maybe you'll be included in that.
Yep, maybe.
We will be we will be figuring out, what the best scheme is. Right now, those are questions we are working through in terms of whether. So I can't definitively answer it, but I would say that I think we have it answered in the white paper, or we sort of have it answered in the white paper by saying, and maybe the FAQ saying, proposals that result in good outcomes will have some sort of reward associated, whether it's the intrinsic reward, and those that have bad outcomes or negative outcomes may have some deleterious effect associated. This may play into or dovetail with staking investing of the votes, which we had to institute to protect against manipulation. Or
right. Yeah, you have there's a whole piece to this of protecting against what you talked about, game theoretical scenarios and the protections and the and of course sure.
Yeah, so it may dovetail with that. So when this goes live, you are not going to have your full Harbour tokens to vote with. You're going to have a portion of them, and in addition, you will not be able to. And of course, we want to give everybody full everything at the get-go, but we have to do these things to make Harbour a less appetizing target for nefarious actors. So we, in one interview I gave recently, I said, Harbour, if the nefarious actor is a whale, we'll say, and Harbour is this agglomeration of krill, we want Harbour to be this agglomeration of krill way off in the distance, and we want more appetizing targets to be here, and we get that way off in the distance by having a time vesting as well as a staking portion of the Harbour. So, and when I say it may dovetail with that staking investing rewards, what that means is we're still working on this, nothing definitive, no promises, but for example, if you have a successful proposal, then you will be able to vote with your full Harbour tokens, or there will be a minimization of your vesting or staking of some way, if that makes sense.
So those kinds of things maybe could be useful.
Yeah, so we're working through those schemes, but I mean, ultimately, it's going to be, the community is going to be giving us the feedback on that. Right. We're not the ones to tell you. I mean, we're the ones to get the ship to Harbour, if you will, but we're not the ones to tell you how the Harbour should operate once we get there. The community is going to be the ones guiding this once we're, in a large part is saying that they're going to saying, well, you know what, actually this doesn't work, guys.
Right.
And we're going to say, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Let's maybe do it this way. we're very open to that. I think we could be the most open founding team in the history of ICOs, in the sense not only that we want to give up, control eventually to the community, but certainly in the can you hear me okay?
Yes, we're good. Yep.
Certainly in the building stages of this, in stage 1.
Yeah.
We really want you guys, us, to tell us, what it is that's working for you and what is not, perhaps. So, and I made the joke that, I would say I don't want to trash talk, but as far as I know, we're the most open ICO out there. Yeah. Well, that's because any ones that I try to talk to, I don't get their founding team ever. So. Yeah,
it's it can be, and the community has a great deal of appreciation for that. I'm sure.
I hope so.
Yeah. So, well, this has been an excellent interview, I have to say. I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah.
Great. Let's see. Now, I often am quite interested to learn more about the roadmap and in terms of adoption. We normally just do 45 to 50 minutes, and so we're looking like, I know it's Sunday, it's family day here as well.
Yeah, sure.
But before we start to look to wrap up, I want to find out, is there anything else, Dylan, that you think we should talk about today that you really wanted to cover?
Yeah, I think we spoke a lot about, a good amount of things. I mean, obviously I want to tell you if you're interested in this, at all.
Yeah.
Our team is very open to you, at this point. and I think in the future too. I say at this point because, hopefully we don't get too involved with questions personally, but there's four of us in the founding team.
Yeah.
And we have a 24-hour cycle, I think, covered. So anybody who comes on our Slack gets an answer from one of us. And we operate internally like we hope this DAO operates, which is like a hive mind. So we all usually have the same answer to everything, and if we don't, then it means we're still working on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to say absolutely join our Slack channel. We'd love to talk to you. We obviously the ICO happens August 1st. If you join the Slack channel and our subscriber list, I'll say it now. We have a whitelisting out there, but you need to join our Slack and you need to join our whitelist to have that available to you, which gives you a better chance of being able to participate in the ICO.
Which will hopefully not be an issue for future ICOs for those of us who are invested in the Harbour token, because you have this system of
AdFarrow.
Yeah, that's such a cool feature. Talk a little bit about that before we go.
Yeah. So AdFarrow is our really is a very practical solution that we kind of was born out of, which is the founding team was often locked out of ICOs because they would end in like 3 minutes.
Yeah. Or you'd miss them because you don't hear about them and they're done.
Too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a pretty simple solution to say, well, why can't we just operationalize that and put it into the Harbour project, and
why not?
Sort of brand it too, right? So you can instantly participate as a Harbour token holder, and I think we may extend this even if you are not. You can instantly participate in any ICO, meaning through AdFarrow, you simply say, I want to, you send the amount that you want to the smart contract address. That smart contract address executes the buy for the ICO automatically.
Like eBay sniping almost. Is that a bad analogy?
Pardon?
Kind of like eBay sniping. Is that a bad analogy?
Yeah. It's not. No, that's a fair analogy. I mean, it basically it allows you instant participation. It guarantees your participation in ICOs. You don't have to be like, you don't have to set your alarm for 2 a.m.
Exactly.
And maybe even connect an Ethernet cable. But
right.
yes. So Faro is really just a very practical thing that's almost like a feature on top of this whole thing that we think is delivering value to obviously our Harbour token holders, but hopefully to the ecosystem as a whole too. And you know, it's going to drive more users hopefully to Harbour too. Yeah. So we wanted to include that in the system, and we think it's a great idea. I mean, it's all of this stuff is stuff that I'll just say in closing, you know, Harbour's. I'm actually personally, aside from my time and mind share, I'm going to, you know, Harbour is something I want myself.
Yeah, right.
So I'm personally invested in it because I want it. And I think that's a great place to approach your involvement in any project that you may be thinking of, right? If you are of that entrepreneurial sort of mindset, is like, is this something that I would want? And exactly. I mean, my answer and why, aside from philosophical stuff, is like, this is something I want like right now. I wish I had it like 3 months ago. Yeah.
Well, certainly there's a lot of history in that story that successful projects are born of people needing to that just go about solving problems themselves. I'm an esports gamer and have suffered some repetitive strain injuries.
Cool.
You can't really see them, but I had to design some.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this is a League of Legends controller
so cool.
Yeah, I had to overcome some injuries from 2 years of League of Legends, 2 hours for every night.
You and Dean would get along very well. He was a League of Legends guy too.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, certainly
awesome.
to be personally invested is a recipe for success. You know, one thing I want to make sure our audience gets a chance to hear is, what is your homepage's URL?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I should know this by heart, but
I can say it. It's Harbour.token. It's Harbour.tokenate.io.
Yeah. So thank you, and it's Harbour.tokenate.io, and it's no www dot. Obviously, it's
right. No www, just Harbour.tokenate.
That's something to remember. I guess maybe it's not. If you're an old guy like me, it's something to remember.
It's like phone numbers when you're an international traveler. You learn to stop trying to memorize stuff Einstein said, don't memorize stuff you can easily reference.
Yeah. So it's Harbour.tokenate.io.
Great. Yes, so let's see. Go ahead.
No, you go. I was gonna say if there's anything else, I'm happy to touch on it.
No, I think that was a great interview, Dylan. So I want to say, on behalf of the YouTube investor community, I want to say thanks for joining us.
It's been my complete and utter pleasure. Thank you so much. So happy to talk about the project, and so happy that you reached out.
Wow. Well, I'm really glad to hear that. Thanks for saying so, Dylan. What I'll do is the usual there's very minor edits that are needed for this one. Sometimes I end up stumbling and need to sort of edit some stuff out on my end, but just very few pieces. So I'll do that work to get it edited and published on our YouTube channel, and I'll drop the link into the Slack channel to let you know that that's taken place, so that you can promote it to your audience. And
perfect. Just don't rickroll me in the edits.
What does that mean? What is that?
You know, have you ever heard of rickrolling?
No. What is that? I have no idea.
You'd cut my interview, and then you play Rick Astley's "Never Gonna Give You Up," the music video. It's called rickrolling. Anyway, sorry for the.
Has this happened to you before?
Yes, it has.
Oh my God,
it has.
That's hilarious.
Well, I mean, not in an interview, but I have been rickrolled. Usually, you send somebody an email where you say like, "Hey, like check this out," and then they click the link, and it's Rick Astley singing "Never Gonna Give You Up."
Ah.
But anyway, sorry.
I'm gonna have to do that with some of my friends.
Oh, you got to check it out. It's pretty hilarious. Yeah, sorry to, but yeah.
It's good stuff. So yeah, I'll drop you the link when it's been published.
Thank you.
And if there's anything else that you think that the Blockchain Speaker Series can help you out with in terms of providing a platform for future updates or anything like that, you can please feel free to reach out. We can do another interview.
That'd be great. Yeah, we'd love to. Yeah, great. And maybe even get another founder on.
Yeah, that's certainly an idea. Okay. All right, Dylan. You enjoy your Sunday, and thanks again.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Great.
Yeah.
My pleasure. You take care.
Okay. You as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.